Open your cerebral cortex and shift your lobes into upper beta phase, because you are going to have Bitcoin knowledge transmitted directly into your vestibulocochlear. Your host at Bitcoin Knowledge is Trace Mayer, an early Bitcoin advocate since it cost $0.25, but this is not intended to be investment advice. A doctor of jurisprudence, but this is definitely not legal advice. And an investor in core cryptocurrency infrastructure, including Armory, BitPay, Kraken, and Mitagio, but this is not a recommendation of those services. Here, you get fed via direct mind download with pure and free Bitcoin knowledge.
Welcome back to the Bitcoin Knowledge Podcast. We got a tremendous interview here with Jaron. I won't even try to pronounce the last name. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself. CEO of Coinsetter, one of the larger, more institutional focused exchanges. Jaron.
Sure, thanks. We have built an institutional class low latency Bitcoin exchange. In the middle, it's basically a trading system built by Wall Street professionals.
Because you're former Wall Street, right? Like investment banker at where JP Morgan.
Yeah, investment banking, private equity, JP Morgan, and Marshall Swat, our CTO, was formerly with a number of firms across Wall Street as well on the Forex side, and that has converted very, very directly into the platform that we had to build and have now built.
Yeah, so now, when did Coinsetter actually get, you got your funding, I think, from Barry, 2 years ago now, probably?
Yeah, to date, we've raised $1.7 million through 2 rounds. We, our initial round, was backed by Barry Silbert. It was one of his earlier investments. That was back also when no one cared about Bitcoin, which I'm sure you remember.
I cared about Bitcoin. But yeah, I mean, there were very few of us that cared about Bitcoin back then. And one of the big problems we had back then was definitely the latency issue. Mt. Gox was just, you'd get 9-hour delays in some cases when there's lots of volatility. So can you talk a little bit about the importance of having this very fast, very kind of clean API exchange when we're going after the institutional money?
Yeah, well, and I think that everyone deserves a reliable exchange. So if you're talking about latency, for the average Bitcoin company, it's going to be less about am I getting millisecond responses on my trades, or my orders. For them, it's really going to be more about can I reasonably assume that my trades are going to go through with some sort of decent timing on it, and more importantly, am I getting great pricing and a liquid order book? The liquid order book aspect is the absolute most important thing that we try to focus on. So not only have we aggregated Bitstamp's order book, and we do so in a very low latency fashion, but also we have a big focus right now on market makers and really different things we can do to attract more professional market makers, specifically people who are not currently participating in the market. I think one of the biggest things that we've done over the past month is release a Fix API, which makes us plug and play for most institutional trading systems. Most anyone who's running an automated algorithm in commodities or Forex, we essentially make those algorithms plug and play for the Bitcoin market. So when you look at what I believe we'll accomplish over the next 6 months, it's not just offering our already deep order book, but it's really about offering a lot of new liquidity, scalable liquidity that isn't currently there. And that will benefit Bitcoin companies and everyone who's participating in the market.
Yeah, this is really important. I notice, I see it a lot when I'm talking with Jesse over at Kraken, because that's the exchange I invested in. But being able to aggregate this liquidity in these order books, do you think that's important from the regulatory standpoint? When we look at the further financialization of Bitcoin that's coming, the CFTC just approved Terra Exchange for Bitcoin derivatives and swaps, things like that. When we're talking about this price discovery, this market making, is it important for our exchanges to be kind of linked together in a lot of these ways?
I don't have a direct answer because I think that each exchange is different in its own way, and I definitely don't think that we'd want to see an SEC style regulation where all exchanges are forced to post each other's quotes. But you definitely have a number of arbitrageurs who arbitrage between the exchanges and create some sort of liquidity. And as more and more exchanges become regulated, the perceived differences between those exchanges will disappear. So really, I think we just try to focus on ourselves and say, can we provide the best technology? Ours is certainly 10 times better than I think anything else in the market. Can we provide a lot of liquidity, and can we incentivize new people to enter the space? So I can only speak for what we're trying to do, but what I'll say is, on something like Terra Exchange, where they are very dependent on basically an index pricing, it does become important. I think our Bitstamp integration is extremely important just for that very reason, because the majority of people who are looking for spot trading based on a derivatives contract on Terra are probably going to be trading something pretty close to Bitstamp. And what we offer is, through our Fix API, plug and play connectivity to Terra Exchange's OMS. That's actually something we're in the works on right now. So not only will you be able to trade those derivatives, but you'll also be able to trade Coinsetter spot in a very low latency fashion. And, if you're market making on either platform, we would allow you to link those systems very easily.
Nice. Yeah, because I'm personally of the opinion that the more diversity that we have in the ecosystem, the more resilient it's going to be. So like the more types of wallets that we have, the more exchanges we have, that way we can distribute a lot of this perceived systemic risk. I mean, we saw Mt. Gox fail, $500 million, just poof, which highlights the importance of the security of the exchange. Now, I know with Coinsetter, you've got something called the Secure Coin. Mm-hmm. Can you go into a little bit in depth about what that is, how you're making sure that customer funds are properly segregated and secured, et cetera?
Sure. So our Secure Coin system is a entirely cold storage system right now. We utilize a few different tools in protecting funds. So I would say that anything that is very transactional in nature, we utilize Armory for that.
Oh, Armory! I've heard that one before.
I thought you would have. And we use Armory. Everything, all public and private key pairs are created offline in an Armory wallet and a custom OS Linux laptop that never touches the internet. I think we pretty much stick to industry best practices on how we create keys, how we only transport public keys, and again using very secure methods. How we store private keys, whether it's through vaults and offline methods. And so, I think our transactional money is really held there. We also hold approximately 50% of our customer funds in Zappos Vault. So, we utilize Zappos Vault. That also allows us to offer insurance. It allows us to diversify where funds are held. And then, finally, we hold a portion of customer funds securely on Bitstamp as well. So that's further diversification. That also provides liquidity for trading. And so, I think there's a big focus on, if someone is looking for a very rapid withdrawal or especially a consumer-facing payment, we're probably not the solution for them. But if someone is looking for, on every single withdrawal, a manual human review on that, actual cold storage processing, so nothing, on Coinsetter, our private keys never touch the internet. They're never in a location where they could ever be compromised. So anyone who would be interested in that kind of protection would be interested in us.
Yeah, I know. I'm pretty paranoid about anything that touches the internet. So I definitely appreciate that aspect of the security. You mentioned kind of this concept of industry standards. this industry is completely new. And you're right here in New York. It makes me wonder if it's insanity or masochism when it comes to regulation with the bit license. You're ground zero with that. How do you think the bit license is going to be affecting the industry? I mean, you want to be right here at the nexus between Bitcoin and Wall Street and the institutional players. New York's a natural choice for that. What are kind of your thoughts on the development of these industry standards, this regulation, it's a big can of worms there.
It'll be interesting to see where the next set of proposed regulations go with the bit license. I think, it's been pretty widely commented by different people in the industry on the problems that the current regulations had. And I think the real problem we all saw is that there must have been some very large miscommunication between the industry and the regulators from the beginning, because ultimately, I think, we were really looking for a path in order to become licensed, and we were looking for those requirements. And, the specific regulatory requirement we have deals with anyone who's interacting between the exchange of fiat and Bitcoin. And that, is an act of money transmission. And really the regs pretty much ignored those problems, and they focused solely on custody of Bitcoin, transmission of Bitcoin, like things that no one really asked to be regulated, and B, things that I don't really believe need to be regulated. If you look at a lot of other states, I think that they're taking the stance that, money transmission will still apply to dollar funds flows, but not necessarily to Bitcoin funds flows. I think you can look at cash as an example of maybe a licensing regime that makes sense, or maybe not a licensing regime, but regulatory requirements that would be very applicable to Bitcoin. So, keeping the let's call it lack of reporting requirements once Bitcoin is obtained, but making sure that exchanges, for instance, that are processing transactions of a certain size for a customer, at least keep those records and report if necessary. So, I think that you can just look to cash. Cash is a much larger market. It's much more anonymous than Bitcoin is. So, I hope to see the regulations go in that direction, but I don't write the regulations, so it's anyone's best guess.
Yeah, this is really a kind of an inflection point, I think, for the U.S. and New York in general. And by the time this interview actually gets out, we'll probably be well along in this regards anyways. But Bitcoin's the first time the data itself has been the value. As you mentioned, we got, anti-money laundering, KYC issues, but we've also got information security issues. We've got like this new form of crypto property. One of the other exchanges I'm invested in, Natagio, they're actually based out of the Isle of Man, and they're a physical gold Bitcoin British pound exchange. And they just finished their ISAE 3000 assurance audit that got signed off by BDO. And, that's kind of the best we can do. It's like a Type 70 SAS2 audit, but it's kind of the best we can do from the information security standpoint to making sure that data, that private key to the Bitcoins, is actually kept safe and secure. In the bit license, there's a chief information security officer or something like that, a CISO requirement. Do you think that's going to become increasingly important in this space, like just being able to perform the actual security of the private keys, and then like formalizing standards around that, kind of like we got international accounting standards and information system standards, things like that? We might even need to come up with a new form of like crypto property standards. Yeah.
Obviously, the chief technology or chief security officer of any company is going to be a just extremely important part of a company's success and their ability to protect customer funds. My concern would be, can regulatory bodies have enough foresight in someone's character that they can judge whether someone's suitable for the job? And I don't think they can be. There are plenty of examples of people who have gained trust or sounded. The whole finance industry, for the most part, on the deal making side, is composed of
John
people.
Corzine, Madoff.
Exactly.
We've never had problems in this area, right?
Exactly, and I think that there are a number of people in the world who are very good at holding a smile and even when they know everything is wrong or that they're not capable or that they're flat out doing something wrong. So. I really believe that as in terms of a licensing requirement, I don't know that you can actually make that decision based on like who the person is. What I would say is, if they want to place licensing requirements on the security, like let's just make them clear. Like let's make what those security requirements are. Do Bitcoins need to be held in a certain way? Must every single company use an Armory wallet? I'm sure you'd love that.
Well, I wouldn't like a regulation that does that, at least not personally. But but it raises a point. Like with Armory, we. Like Alan innovated this type 2 hierarchical deterministic wallet. And now with the multi-sig and our next generation of wallets that are going to be coming out where we're using trees instead of just the chains, we're going to be able to, people will be able to use the Armory software to craft security plans where they're distributing out that signing authority. In some cases, it could be even like 21 out of 35 total signatures that are going to be needed to move coins. And so, Satoshi comes out with this decentralized distributed network and currency, and the first thing that we do is run and try to centralize it. And then we see it in the bit license. We run and try to centralize all the signing authority, or at least the security responsibility in the CISO, when really, I think it might be better to keep those private keys widely distributed. Because then it would require a whole lot more collusion or theft or compromising of a particular individual in order to see those funds disappear.
Definitely. I think the multi-sig stuff is so early stage still, and it's very obvious that will solve a lot of problems. Ultimately, I think what will be great to see is not only are keys distributed, but are they protected in different ways that are not necessarily easy to find out. Mm-hmm. You don't necessarily want getting to the centralization thing. You almost don't even want 10 multi-sig companies focusing on the protection around those keys, because unless you can, I think with that type of centralization, you can definitely start to poke holes in the system. When you have so many companies working on one thing. So
once again, getting back to that, we want a wide variety of life, because that becomes more anti-fragile, to use what is it? Nassim Taleb's book, Anti-Fragile, where Bitcoin I actually think is anti-fragile in the sense that not only when something's fragile, when we introduce chaos, it'll shatter it, but we don't really have something that gets stronger when we introduce more chaos, a word for that. And that's what this anti-fragile concept is that he brought up. And Bitcoin, it really seems, is very anti-fragile in this sense. Every time we've had a setback, every time we've had a problem, Bitcoin's actually adapted, and the way we've used Bitcoin has adapted to make it even more resilient.
Well, that's why side chains are so interesting.
Yeah, the
enhance the speed of that.
Yeah, Blockstream just raised their $15 million. Time of the interview was just yesterday is when they made the press release. So, yeah, these side chains and other tree chains, the way that we're going to be implementing and adapting and building out Bitcoin, I think is going to become much more exciting also. Because, we're trading, at the heart of it, we're trading just this one unit. There's 100 million Satoshis per Bitcoin, and that's the unit that we're really trading on your exchanges. Yeah. But what we can do with that unit in this Bitcoin network, the possibilities are really kind of endless. And so, all the way from the security to the regulation, I think we've really got to keep our minds open in order to allow for all of this innovation.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the biggest fear with the regulation right now is just that it can completely put a block on innovation in the U.S. And right now the blockchain is completely traceable, and it might be great to also implement additional privacy features into the blockchain. And I mean, who knows what the future holds, but it is good for the industry to have the ability to test those things out, and if they're successful, people will move over to those side chains, and Bitcoin can become much more fluid towards customer demands or user demands.
Just to wrap up, we're pretty running a little bit short on time with the interview. What's the single thing that you're most excited about with Bitcoin? Like what's we're just the beginning of this industry. Like you've decided to move over from investment banking, nice career over there. Like why? I mean, why are you so excited, so passionate about this space?
Well, I get excited just because a couple of reasons. One is I look at the financial system and it is broken and it's breaking further. You look at a lot of the regulations that have come in place within the banking sphere, and they are becoming such barriers to companies starting and innovating. They really do test people's freedom. And I think the whole regulatory regime around the banking system is extremely flawed. It's based on let's try to predict if someone is going to be a bad actor and then act accordingly based on that, instead of let's make it easily traceable to understand if someone does wrong that we can find them. And so that I believe is what Bitcoin provides. It's a new technology. If you kind of read about the wind hover principles that were also released this week, that kind of goes in that direction where right now you have to provide identity verification documents, a utility bill, all these things which can be counterfeited, and regardless, like what if you go and show that to us or a bank or anyone, like what kind of it's impossible to make an educated decision on whether someone is going to commit crimes on your platform in advance. Yet we still face the consequences for that. So you're the whole financial system now is just one big guessing game, and I think Bitcoin provides new regulatory options that will allow people to have freedom and control over their own money, but kind of also provide what I think most of society would consider to be some sort of decent and moral, ethical safeguard in terms of if someone goes and commits a very bad crime, like trying to I won't mention specific crimes, but some of the really bad ones that at least we can track those people down through the blockchain, and ultimately their identity is probably going to end up at some exchange. So I'm very excited about what the technology provides just in terms of people's freedom. I also really, really am passionate about it. The ability to help the underbanked, the ability to lower remittance costs. It aggravates me to no end to see how much people are charged for sending money overseas to Mexico, or the fact that people's bank accounts are being shut down, and just how difficult it is to send money in general. We're in 2014, and sending money overseas can be a manual process, and it is very confusing. Anyone who's ever had to send an international wire transfer knows how difficult and unnecessarily complex it is to maneuver around these systems. So once you start using Bitcoin, it becomes very obvious that this is a much better tool, not just from what I said on kind of the how I think it can enhance the world in terms of regulation and how we live, but also just getting down to can we help make people relatively richer, specifically the poor.
Yeah, that's current system, it is totally broken. And you're one of the CEOs, major institutional B2B exchange that's building the solutions. Thanks so much for being on the Bitcoin Knowledge Podcast, Jaron.
Thanks for having me.
Be sure to get a copy of the free Bitcoin Guide at freebitcoinguide.com. Got a question or suggestion? Record your voice at bitcoin.kn. Don't be shy. To help the show, share bitcoin.kn with friends, post about it on Reddit, and otherwise spam the interwebs. Your iTunes comments and 5-star reviews are very important to us. Please continue tuning in to the Bitcoin Knowledge Podcast, where we release interviews with the top people in the Bitcoin world. Now take some choline and let that Bitcoin knowledge consolidate.